How's it going, Reef Keepers? Just wanted to talk to you a little bit today about flow in nano reef tanks. And flow in nano reef tanks, in my opinion, is a stickier wicket than handling flow in a large reef tank, right? And that's because of the limited real estate that you have. So on a nano reef tank, like the one in front of me, this is a Innovative Marine 25-gallon lagoon tank. You really have to keep in mind the placement of the Wavemaker, if you are to have one, in conjunction with the types of coral and their placement in the tank. Most reefers, as I understand it, have a mixed reef tank like the one you see in front of you. So I've got SPS coral in this tank, LPS coral, and even one softie. So achieving flow in such a limited profile that is going to properly address the needs and not, give too much flow at the same time to all those different types of coral in a tank, that's hard on a big tank. It's even harder on a tank like this. This particular tank, it actually, some of the difficulty of it is alleviated by the fact that if you look up at the water surface, you see that as standard on this particular tank, you have 4 outflow nozzles that are connected to the return pump. That is very useful. So I have them all pointed at the surface because I actually was able to add a Wavemaker that I had just kicking around the garage that covers the flow needs of the tank without me pressing into action those outflow nozzles. But if you get a tank that has multiple outflow nozzles and you're not really getting into SPS coral, you're more limiting your tank to softies or SPS or LPS or a combination of the two, you're going to be in a good situation with multiple outflow nozzles that are, you can directionally adjust to hit various areas of coral in the tank. So it's possible, what I'm saying is it's possible you may not need a return or a Wavemaker at all. You may be able to get away with just a return pump, right? Depending on the strength of the return pump. Now, if you add SPS to the mix on a tank that is like 20, 25, 30 gallons, I'm thinking probably you're going to need some kind of additional flow action in the tank, and that will come in the form of adding a Wavemaker. So you can see that dead center and elevated in the tank, I have a Nero 3 Wavemaker. So I've positioned it dead center so that it's got a broad flow pattern. You need to take into account the flow pattern of the Wavemaker. A Nero 3 has a broad flow pattern. So by positioning it high, I'm positioning it high in conjunction with the relatively high height that I have placed the SPS coral frags at, right? So the water flow up high in the tank is going to be more turbulent and more intensive than it is down low in the tank. And that's good because down low in the tank, you can see I have LPS frags, and LPS cannot stand up to the kind of flow that SPS coral can. It doesn't want that kind of flow. You could tear the flesh of the corals, and that goes for softies as well. I only have one little Zoa frag in here, but it doesn't want to get battered by flow. So generally, you want your Wavemaker to be up and away from the LPS or softies that you've got in the tank. You want them getting indirect flow as a byproduct of focusing most of the flow on the higher, more elevated SPS coral that requires heavier flow in a mixed reef nano tank, right? It's going to take time to adjust. So be patient with it. Start whatever Wavemaker you choose, whether it's something along the lines of a Nero 3, which is a more high-end pump. If you're a budget reefer, I would tend to push you toward like a Jabao SLW 10 or something of that nature, a DLW 10, depending on what kind of feature set you're looking for, what kind of profile you're looking for. It doesn't require much. A nano tank doesn't need to have some super high-end, Wavemaker on it at all. I had that kicking around the garage, so that's what I put on there. But pay attention to the flow pattern that you're getting off of it. And really, people panic, and if they turn on their flow in a nano tank and day one, some of the coral closes up, they're panicking and fiddling with it. And don't do that. Give the coral time to adjust to the new flow pattern. If in a few days it proves that the coral does not really love that flow, most of the polyps are retracted, back off a little bit on the flow intensity, right? Or move the pump to reduce the direct impact of the Wavemaker. Just take your time, kind of just trial and erroring where you should place it exactly and at what flow intensity you should place it exactly. I do recommend random flow setting, which Jabaos have, and then companies like AI on their Nero line, they've got random flow settings, which more mimics a reef-like condition. But essentially, you don't need much more, even with SPS in the tank, than probably a single power head until you get up to like 35, 40 gallon, range. Once you're in that range, you may very well need to add a second power head somewhere else, maybe on the opposite end, something of that nature. But I would say like 20, 25, 30 gallon range tanks. If you've got SPS, throw in, one Wavemaker. And then if you don't have any SPS in the tank, you just got LPS and softies, see if you can get away with utilizing those nozzles, right? If you've got 2 or more nozzles, you may very well be able to get away with just turning your return pump up a little bit and relying on, the directionality of those, and the intensity of the flow coming out of them, and just be fine with that. So, but it is totally a trial and error game and totally dependent upon, the kind of flow pattern coming out of the Wavemaker that you get, the intensity that you set it at, the different kind of corals that you have in the tank. It's very difficult in one short YouTube video to cover all the different eventualities that people may face in a nano tank situation regarding flow. So long story short, my message is take your time. Don't panic if some of the coral closes up. Go forward slowly and experiment with it. If you add a Wavemaker, take it slow, experiment with it, figure out where that is best placed and what the coral seems to be enjoying, and eventually you'll hit the sweet spot. You really will, but you have to be patient with it. Cannot rush it. So yeah, if you guys have questions about what I've done on other tanks, I've kept multiple nano tanks in the past, used multiple different products with all of them. Please feel free, go ahead and hit me up in the comments. All right guys, have a good one.